the time that Sahaja Yoga has been coming down to Wollongong, there's been a variety of programs run and a variety of courses, including for students, including medical students, sharing this technique of Sahaja Yoga. So officially, I'd like to welcome you all for coming and thank you for coming. There's a number of people to welcome. Firstly, we've already mentioned the Music of Joy. We've got a beautiful bunch of young Sahaja yogis, many of whom are from overseas, who are at the moment on a bit of a trek around the country. In fact, there's 4 arms to the tour by the Meditate Australia tour, and that is covering 150 programs across Australia just in this 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a pretty immense effort they've put in, and it just shows you their enthusiasm for it, and also the fact that meditation's really come out of the closet. And the idea is that if you're not meditating, you're probably not as well as you might be, because all the indicators suggest that a little bit of time in mental silence or thoughtless awareness is a great boon to the autonomic nervous system. If you were here on doctor's recommendations, that would be sufficient. But we hope that some of you are seekers, and that's our third group that I'd like to welcome, is those people who are seekers of truth. And truth is a funny word these days. It's like you can go on the internet and get any number of versions of truth. But Sri Mataji, who founded this movement from 1923 to 2011, single-handedly devised and developed and delivered this program, this meditation technique around the world, and it's literally been handed on to millions of people. It's a very mystical type of yoga and meditation. Many yogas these days are either hatha yoga or different types, but we are Sahaja yogis, and Sahaja is a very ancient Sanskrit term, and it describes a supreme state, actually, of yoga meditation, but it also means innate. It's intrinsic and innate within us. And so when Sri Mataji says, you know, I shouldn't be, nobody should be charging you to learn such a thing because it's just intrinsic within you, we fully subscribe to that. And so Sahaja Yoga is always passed on for free. We realize, however, that in the modern day, the practice of a true yoga meditation, which is achieving thoughtless awareness and sustaining it, is I won't say it's difficult, though it's very spontaneous and easy in this method, but to sustain it and really become one with your own awareness in thoughtlessness is most things only aspire to. But you can definitely find it in Sahaja Yoga, and that's our purpose tonight, is to help you find yourself, your true, deepest, highest, most divine self, in silence. And that space is a space for mystics, mystics of all sorts in all the religions. And I thought, since we were at the university tonight in the ocean room, I'd take, and we could do this with 7 or 8 different paths, but I thought that I would alert you to the fact that Rumi, who is a Persian mystic Muslim, really sums up the situation for us. He said, "You're not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop." So if I was to address you all and say, well, you're actually divine, you're actually absolutely divine, and that you're made in the image of the divine, and that divine is within you and can be accessed and can be understood and facilitated, that's a great truth. And the point is to realize this. And this is not a book learning or something you can, do mentally. It's a transmental experience. And that's where it's interesting, because we're terribly hooked on our thoughts, on our concepts, our mind, our ego, our sense of self that's a small s, rather than our sense of self, which is a large S. So the notion is that when you get close to this silence, and silence is a space and a practice that's advocated by many, Rumi says silence is an ocean, and silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. So what you find in all of these paths, all these religious paths, and Srimataji will touch on it in the video talk we're going to share in a little while, is that this experience is universal to people who are universal, who have touched that mystic silence, that oneness, that union, and achieved an ongoing state of absolute understanding and acceptance that they have that connection and they are one with the divine. And so that's what we're shooting for. But that's all very mystical. And the real question is, I think, how does this all gauge in a scientific sense? And I thought I'd give a plug to Dr. Ramesh's book, Silence Your Mind, which was written by a leading meditation researcher here in Australia, Ramesh Manocha. It's a book you can get. It summarises a lot of research that's been done on Sahaja Yoga, not least of all for stress and stress management. So in a practical sense, it's good to know that your mystical practice is good for you in a medical sense. And that sense of silence, when you can achieve it, as this little graph shows, is really twice as effective almost as a conventional concentration or relaxation technique. Now, we teach and have taught a lot to do with stress and stress management and so on, and if somebody's stressing out, it's very hard for them to jump straight into meditation. It can't happen really. So typically you can do something like breathing, and in fact I might suggest it now. It'll give me a break and give you a chance to experience something. But let's just assume for a moment that we can all breathe together. Let's just try a breath. Breathe in and pause, and breathe out and pause. Breathe in and pause, breathe out and pause. Breathe in and pause, and breathe out and pause. So now let your breathing find its own level, because this practice isn't about breathing. But pranayama is a very good practice, particularly if you're stressing out. And there are various other things that you can do which will give you an intervention and will give you a relaxation response. That, however, is not yoga meditation. And so what we aim to do tonight, with the aid of a talk by Srimataji and being led by one of our Meditate Australia members, is actually introduce you to the technique, meditate together, and get you to a point where you start to experience not only deep mental silence, but a flow state that happens here above your head. Now, in traditions of all sorts, somebody who's an enlightened soul, a great soul, any nomination you want to give, even the Pope wears a pipe on top, are all aspiring or showing some manner of halo or emanation or tongues of flame, if your tradition is Christian, and so on, above the top of the head. And this is the area beyond the ego and the mind, which is where we're usually trapped, and into a point of flow that's deeply silent and deeply connected and deeply integrating. So the upside of this is, instead of working harder or relaxing harder or whatever, you just need to facilitate this beautiful experience of energy flowing, your energy, your pure energy, flowing out the top of your head, and by itself, without effort, the system starts to balance and integrate. And this is the sort of stuff that shows up in this research. Now, this then shows us that we have within us a subtle body system, and most people are fairly aware they've got a physical body. They're attentive to emotions which come and go. They have thoughts all the time, but rarely are they able to back up into a deeper awareness which is behind all of these things. And that awareness is the unchanging awareness of oneness, of spirit. There's many terms for it, but the fact is it's there all the time. And it is an innate, intrinsic reality in us. There's nothing foreign. There's ego, mind might think it's a little foreign because it's something they're not running, but actually your higher self, your God self, if you like, is always present, always eternal and conscious and aware. And what you need to do, if you really want to get off the temporal plane and into the divine realm, is allow your attention to come beyond the mind and the ego and up here, just a few inches above your head. And that's the target experience that we have in Sahaja Yoga, which is thoughtless awareness. And that flow is felt above the top of your head. And this system, which parallels the central nervous system, the left and right sympathetic and the parasympathetic, is well and truly within us. It's there for discovery, it's there for management, it's there for realization that you are a spirit, that you have a subtle body and gross body and mental and emotional bodies, but you are the unchanging awareness behind those. That is the spirit. That this flow state, which we call a union in yoga, is also the same as a Zen state. It's also the same as people who are entering or endeavouring to stay in the now, which is pure presence, and also the oneness of pure being, which is when you be able to step through and beyond your mental levels. And all of this is deeply nourishing, because the essence of this power, this sacred power that we have, which is in the sacrum bone, is a divine mothering power. It's a divine feminine. And she is, depending on which your tradition is and how you've been educated, she's actually the worker in the universe. It's said that God the Father is transcendent. He's beyond the creation, it's just pure awareness. God the Mother, the Divine Mother, is the power of God, the desire power of God, and is doing all the living work, all the living work. Now, because the universe is so huge, we have trouble getting hold of an idea like this, that there is a causal level of energy and also a teleology or a destination for our evolution. But that destination is nothing other than being a pure reflector of the divine. That's your spirit. And so our central affirmation, when we get into the process of awakening this divine mothering power, is simply that I am the spirit. And allowing your attention to sit on that, and also to dissolve into this flow from the top of the head. So this is a repeatable, definable experience, and it's something like plugging in a computer that you didn't know you had, because this system, which is within us, is reading out in real time the state of these energy systems and the state of these channels. Just met a lady who came in whose name is Ida or Ida, and that word in Sanskrit is the left channel, which is this blue channel on the side. It's the moon channel. On the right side is the Pingala channel, and in the centre is the Sahaja channel. This whole experience, all this technique, all this understanding was shared by Sri Mataji, and Sri Mataji travelled tirelessly for many, many years, including a visit to Wollongong. So we thought it would be auspicious and nice to at least play some of the talk that Sri Mataji gave when she was here in Wollongong in 1992. And so we'll do that, and then we'll try the actual experience ourselves. But without feeling shy, feel free to ask a question or pose a question, or let us know any kind of feedback you might have, or any kind of inquisition you might have about this. If you don't feel like speaking now, what we will do once we've had the formal part of the program is that we will have a return to music and a workshop that will enable you, if you haven't felt it, to sit with some yogis who are able to. The yogis are the ones who are wearing the purple patches, and they'll be able to facilitate and help your energy rise. So it's a verifiable experience, and it's about self-knowledge. It's not about anything that's extrinsic. It's all you. It's all yours within yourself. But I think the missing component culturally that we've got is that we haven't paid respect to the feminine, to the divine feminine. And that means that Mother Earth and Mother Nature and the Mother Principle have all been denigrated in our Western culture. And until we get that back, until we get to a collective concern for the planet and for each other and revere the feminine, we're going to be going down further and further down a spiral that many people are already concerned about. So it's our hope that not only will you take to this as a personal practice, but that you will share it, and that you'll get the benefits and the joy from it, and the certainty that you know how to discriminate. One of the upsides of this system is that you can sense for yourself on your own internal vibratory awareness what is appropriate for you. And it's not going to pick you the lottery numbers, but it's certainly going to help you guide and give you feedback both on yourself and decisions and things that you might be facing. So this is essentially about self-discovery, but it's happening at a time when collective awakening is happening all around the world, and not just in this part, but more and more there's a giant sweep towards meditation and towards the power of the feminine manifesting. Jung, the great psychologist, said, we're heading towards collective consciousness, and how will we know when we get there? We'll know when the weight of the woman in the society is equal to that of men, and that's certainly a shift that we've been seeing, and also that when we are equally concerned with the whole, and we are now getting there because things like climate and so on are really concerning everybody, particularly the young people who will inherit this situation. So without further ado, I think what I should do is hand over to Sri Mataji. There's a lot of information in Sahaja Yoga. We can't possibly telescope everything into a night, but we can certainly telescope the experience of having this Kundalini awakening, this Divine Mother awakening, and for you to be able to spontaneously enter and sustain into thoughtless awareness. That's the target experience. When we do the research, which is very validated and very powerfully significant, it's been based on thoughtless awareness.